The Rams are ready to look toward the future, and we're going to start talking about the future on today's episode, breaking down multiple first-round mock drafts for the NFL draft this year, but specifically talking about the picks that are going for the Los Angeles Rams at 26. A little bit of a trend we're seeing in terms of the pick they're going with, so we're going to talk about what the experts are saying and kind of where we can kind of see if they're tipping the cap in terms of what the Rams may do in this year's draft, all on today's episode of the Rams Digest. I'm your host, Josh. If you don't remember, if you guys are not subscribed to the channel, do me a favor and press that subscribe button now, as 79.3% of you guys are watching the videos, but you're still not subscribed to the channel. Do me a favor, press that subscribe button so you don't miss any daily Rams content here at the Rams Digest. Maybe I missed a day, but let's be quiet about that. Sorry if you guys see my eyes a little red too, by the way. Don't worry about it. It's all good. No injury. I took a shower and I had some soap in my eye, apparently. So anyways, let's getting into the mock draft, okay? NFL mock draft time, right? We talked about this on Monday. Actually, I ended up going a little bit too long talking about Matthew Stafford and the possibility of him retiring. And so because I went so long, I couldn't break down some of these names that I wanted to break down on Monday. So maybe we'll do a kind of consistently the next few weeks, mock draft Mondays. It is Wednesday today that I'm recording this. I'm probably posting it. So, we'll keep it to Mondays typically in the future. But going back to the conversation I had on Monday's video, we'll break down the draft. And first things first, I want to break down what picks the Rams have in general. We're only going to break down the first round, but so we can see what we're looking at for this year's draft. First round pick, third round pick. So 2/3 and a first. I think that's about 3 picks roughly in the top 100 of picks. That's a pretty important picks there. So maybe the Rams can do something with those 3. But we know that the Rams have done their damage in the past in the 5th round. Kyren Williams, Puka Nacua, 3rd round Byron Young, right? So later rounds still matter, right? And it's definitely important to pay attention to who the Rams are picking late in the draft, because you never know. You could find a couple of superstars, right? Kyren Williams and Puka Nacua being a couple that come to mind, 5th round picks. So a few picks there. You're talking about 4th round pick and 3 6th rounds picks. So total, we're looking at 7 picks in this year's draft. Again, we're going to talk specifically about the first round on today's episode, but I wanted to break down the picks in general that the Rams have when we're talking about the draft. And I also wanted to break down this here. I wanted to break down the draft needs according to Cameron De Silva of the Rams Wire. We're going to break this down here from his article. Offensive tackle, right? Not just left tackle, not just right tackle, right? Because we're talking about Alaric Jackson. If he leaves in free agency, you have a huge hole at left tackle. We saw what Joe Noteboom did when he had to sub in, and a lot of Rams fans in the comments have been hitting me up saying that no, that's not something we want. We want to move on from Noteboom. If you decide to not pay Alaric Jackson, then you're going to look at, you need a left tackle, right? Which I don't think that's an ideal thing for the Rams to not pay Alaric Jackson, not find a free agent left tackle. It's very important for them to figure out somebody, if not Alaric Jackson. So I wouldn't be super excited if the Rams leave that as an open space on the roster going into the draft, but it's something they need to address for sure. Not just for Alaric Jackson. If he leaves, if you sign Alaric Jackson, well, Rob Havenstein is not the youngest of players in the right tackle position, right? So you got to kind of look at offensive tackle on both sides of the line. Wide receiver, Cooper Kupp. We don't know what his future is going to be. Even if you have Cooper Kupp, you're talking about maybe 1 or 2 more seasons at best. And so in that scenario, you still want to find a future wide receiver. Maybe you can say Jordan Whittington has shown flashes and you want him to get more involved on offense. Sure, but I don't know if that's a guarantee that Jordan Whittington is going to blossom into a second receiving option next to Puka Nacua in the future, right? So let's look at the receiver position. That's definitely a need. You're talking about 3rd receiving option, right? The Tutu Atwells or the Marcus Robinsons, first of all, are free agents, I believe. Second of all, are not necessarily the best of options. They did great for the Rams, of course. They had their moments, had their flashes, but I think the Rams can still look to improve at the receiver position, specifically if Cooper Kupp leaves, especially, right? That's definitely what we want to kind of acknowledge as well. He could leave. We can move on from him. So tight end position, Tyler Higbee, he did his thing, looked pretty good, but ultimately, right, dealing with injuries, don't want to rely on Tyler Higbee to play a full season because he hasn't shown he can do that in the last couple of years. So it's definitely something you want to acknowledge, something you have to address. If it's not Tyler Higbee at tight end, who will it be? Can we address that? And you notice the first 3 needs here, offensive side of the football, right? But defensively, the Rams can still have some work to do, right? I kind of want to make sure we pay attention to this. A lot of Rams fans are like, oh, the defense is great and they're so good. And look at the 16 sacks in 2 playoff games. They put some pressure on the other teams. Don't get me wrong. They also allowed over 200 yards to Saquon Barkley, not once, but twice this season. They need to get better at stopping the run, and also slowing teams down earlier in the season. Of course, maybe you can assume these players all get better, and next year they're just going to be a better defense. But let's not just assume that. There are some needs on the defense side of the football, especially inside linebacker, defensive tackle, maybe be bigger body D tackle as well, in my opinion. But we're talking here about inside linebacker. A lot of Rams fans have even hit the comments saying they want to move on from Roseboom. I agree. Maybe you do need to move on and improve at that inside linebacker position. Someone who can stop the run, go downhill, fill the gaps as needed, stop the run, but also play a little bit of pass coverage. Very difficult and ideal, of course, at that linebacker position, inside linebacker position. But that's what the Rams need and what they need to improve on. Cornerback, Kobe Durant, Darius Williams, they're under contract still. Keeler Witherspoon, he's a free agent. And also Emmanuel Forbes, right? We still need some more help at that defensive back position, especially in the cornerback room. Safety room is looking pretty solid. But overall, I think you do need to improve at that cornerback position. So defensively, I would say maybe D tackle, maybe another corner, and maybe a linebacker, and a couple linebackers, right, to help you out. That's kind of the goal there. And then offensively, offensive tackle, receiver, and tight end, or offensive line in general, are things I think the Rams need to adjust moving forward. So let's break down this first pick here. And the first pick we talked about a little bit on Monday as well. I want to go into more detail about it. Colston Loveland out of Michigan. Does he make it past the Chargers? I think the Chargers draft ahead of the Rams. And, we talk about, not that I think it's a guarantee that this would happen, but there's a real possibility that Harbaugh does not let him slide past the Chargers because, of course, the Michigan connection, and the Chargers need a tight end right now. So we'll see if this even happens, or it's even possible to happen. But if Colston Loveland is on the board, I don't think it's a bad option, but I also don't know about tight end. Positional value kind of matters in the draft, and I think sometimes we can forget that, right? Oh, we need a tight end. Let's get a tight end. But also, it's a tight end, right? You can probably find a solid tight end play later down the road, or you can find a free agent replacement that can kind of give you what any tight end would give you, right? A seam route kind of guy, a guy who can catch the ball up the middle of the field, guy who will block a little bit. Colston Loveland specifically will pull up his positive, talking about, this is coming out of Bleacher Report. They're saying 6'5", 245 pounds, some positives here, plus level athlete for his size. Kind of something that the NFL is moving towards right in the future. They're looking towards guys who can move down the field, up the seam, deep ball, right? Catch deep ball every now and then, and really be more receiving options rather than blocking options. I think that's kind of what the NFL has been gearing towards, right? The Kyle Pitts of the world, the Evan Ingrams of the world, the athletic tight ends that can move down the field. Seems like this is kind of what fits Colston Loveland's mold. He's a receiver, good route runner, multiple alignments. He's an outstanding catch radius, so he can go up and attack the football, catch the ball at its highest point, it says here from Bleacher Report, and vertical speed to threaten the seam off play action. There are some negatives there, some concentration drops and all that stuff. But overall, again, I think you're talking about the positional value is the biggest negative for me. Do the Rams really need a tight end that badly that you would pass on an offensive lineman, an offensive tackle, an offensive guard? Even if you're just talking about depth, linebacker position, we're talking about the D tackle, we're talking about cornerback. Are you going to pass on all those important positions to find a new tight end? I don't really know if that's really the best route for the Rams to take. So I don't know if I love this one, but Colston Loveland, don't think it'd be a bad option for the Rams. If you find a tight end that's good and he ends up working for you, of course, I'm not opposed to it. Another weapon on offense, why not? But moving on from that, the next offensive lineman here, and I actually just screenshotted my own little mock draft from PFF's mock draft simulator just because I couldn't find one that had Aireontae Ersery like this with his name on it. But Aireontae Ersery out of Minnesota. He's the left tackle for Minnesota. Been the left tackle for a few years from what I've seen, from the clips I've seen, from the film breakdown. I don't know why I couldn't think of that right now. The film breakdown of Aireontae Ersery is one. Minnesota like to run the football a lot, and he has been a mover in the run game. Every time you look at a highlight from Aireontae Ersery, it's him rolling over a defensive lineman, getting him, pushing him out the way for his running back to score a touchdown, for his running back to pop off outside, right? And so at left tackle, a 3-year starter, got the experience under his belt. We can break down even some of his information here. He's 6'6", 339 pounds. I mean, that is incredible size for a left tackle. He is a really, really big guy. So I will say he can move a little bit. I've seen him run down the field to block some players, but he is a really, really big guy. And I think that's something that you have to kind of be hesitant about when we're talking about left tackle position. You want someone who's pretty mobile, especially in the pass blocking perspective. But we look here at some of the positives breaking down from what Bleacher Report is saying. Good arm length, stiff, powerful punch, right? Like what I'm saying, he's a strong, power, almost run game kind of left tackle. Clear eyes, good spatial awareness, carries a low active inside hand to catch, shows solid athletic ability. Again, solid athletic ability, 339 pounds. impressive for that size, but he's not the most mobile, agile guy you're ever going to have at left tackle. So I think that's kind of something the Rams would have to be aware of. But again, huge offensive lineman. We see what Philadelphia Eagles have been doing the last couple years and what they've done with the offensive line, having 6'6" plus, 300-pound plus guys at the offensive line position. You can see the value that has, especially if you find a good running back, which is what the Rams have in Kyren Williams at the moment. So that's kind of one thing here. I'm pulling up negatives that aren't showing on your guys' screen that I just wanted to make sure I got for you guys. Tardy strike timing leaves him vulnerable, susceptible to take the bait. So he kind of, any stutter or kind of multi-moves, he maybe kind of get lost. Again, he's a bigger guy, so it's harder for him to adjust, I think, quickly to a couple double moves, things like that. Has a tendency of two-hand striking, drops his eyes, lunging into contacts. Again, I think that it's because he is a good run blocker. He wants to get the hands on the defensive players. If they are going around him, it's kind of tough for him to do. Upright play style saps some of his leverage, ability to sustain power late in a rep. So those are some negatives I'm seeing here from Bleacher Report as well. But overall, I think it's an interesting offensive draft pick here. And this is one of those ones, too, where I think you can maybe say you can slide this guy in as a left guard or something. Not that the Rams don't have that already on the roster, but I think just an idea you would have and maybe exploring that option, right? Again, just depth on the offensive line. I don't think you could ever have too many offensive linemen. And so now I'm not saying a guard in the first round or a left tackle who is more of a power, maybe going to have to play backup for the first year of his career is ideal for the Rams, but something I think the Rams would probably consider signing a veteran left tackle if it's not Alaric Jackson, and then go ahead and slip in a guy like Ersery in to learn behind. Not ideal in your first round pick. The first round picks, you want them to be NFL ready, but late in the first round where the Rams are, it's a little difficult to find superstar guaranteed starters, right? First year of their careers. It's difficult to assume that's going to happen, right? Out of any first round pick. So moving on from that, we'll pull up the next one here as we have Los Angeles Rams here taking offensive tackle Josh Simmons. Again, now this is a complete different mock draft, so I forget where I pulled this from, but this is another site, some experts saying their opinion on what the Rams should look at. Josh Simmons, offensive tackle, Ohio State. Rob Havenstein nearing retirement, and Alaric Jackson pending free agent. The Rams have to address their long-term solutions at both tackle positions. Josh Simmons has produced quality tape at both, but his best film came this season at left tackle. This is coming from A.J. Schulte, or if that's how you pronounce his name, I apologize. I hope it is. So we can give a breakdown of Josh Simmons as well. And this is what I was talking about when I was breaking down why I'm seeing some kind of trend here out of what the mock drafts are looking like. It looks like offensive tackle, offensive lineman is something that the Rams are either tipping their cap, saying that's what they're looking towards in the draft, especially in the first round, or the experts are just assuming that because of their situation, that maybe it's time for them to move forward in an offensive line capacity on either side of the tackles position. So here's some positives here. Loose, fluid mover with excellent initial quickness. Regularly beats the rusher to the spot. Works independent, hands showing circle punch, snatch trap. These are all very detailed stuff that I'm not the best at knowing in terms of my football knowledge. But sounds like good, positive stuff. Shows impressive spatial awareness with a strong drag hand against games and stunts to work inside. So it sounds like he gets in his position pretty solidly. That gets there where he needs to be. Again, 6'5", 310 pounds. Good size for an offensive lineman at the 336 we just saw out of Ersery, but still good size. And I think the lighter weight on him kind of allows him to move, be a little more mobile a little bit. A couple negatives only when we're talking about Josh Simmons here. It looks like allows slippery run defenders to access his edges late in a rep. That forced him to into scramble mode. Through 5 games has been on the positive side of blowouts and middling competition on the edge. So really there's 2 negatives they're saying about Josh Simmons, which kind of makes me intrigued about a guy like him. First of all, coming out of Ohio State, right, the national champions. So obviously a good team, a player coming from a good team, a good organization, or a good school, a good program. So that's obviously those are some positives. But the only negatives you're really seeing is they're blowing teams out. In generally speaking, he's not facing top tier edge rushing talent, and so they're saying that essentially that's kind of a couple concerns or things to note for concerns for Josh Simmons. Pretty good left tackle option in my opinion. Sounds like something I think the Rams would actually be very beneficial of. He's one of my favorite picks that I've seen mocked to the Rams so far. But that's where I'm talking about the trend, right? A couple of left tackles back to back. And let's see who Dane Brugler, a very, very good draft expert out of The Athletic, and also, I forget who else, Daniel Jeremiah, another superstar draft expert who does a lot of draft breakdowns. I highly recommend you guys watch their stuff. They have both agreed the Rams take the next pick. Both of them have this being the pick for the Rams in their mock drafts separately, not a joint mock draft. These are separate mock drafts. They have the Rams taking Josh Conerly. Now, the big thing you have to notice when we're talking about guys like Dane Brugler, guys like Daniel Jeremiah, guys like Mel Kiper, when they're drafting players, they're doing their mock drafts. Sometimes they are wrong. Sometimes they're really off. Sometimes they're, just kind of saying what their opinion is, especially in their early mock drafts. These are all their first and second mock drafts that they've been doing this year. And I think one thing we have to notice, though, about those guys is they have an ear to the organizations. They have an ear to the NFL. So I think that's kind of what's interesting when you see those guys, the mainstream media guys, break stuff down, is they're not just making picks at home having fun with it. No, they're hearing some things. And so for Dane Brugler and Daniel Jeremiah separately to both pick offensive tackle Josh Conerly Jr. out of Oregon, that kind of means, to me, kind of raises some not red flags, but raises my eyebrows a little bit, saying, okay, maybe this is a name the Rams are interested in or are looking at. So it says here, I'm still getting used to seeing the Rams make picks in the first round after their 7 draft gap from 2017-2023. The team poured resources into the defensive line in the last draft. They flipped the script and take care of offensive line in the first round this year. And that's kind of a projection, I think, from either Dane Brugler or Dan Jeremiah. I forget which one. I think it is Dan Jeremiah. But the next one here, we'll pull up Josh Conerly's his measurables. 6'4", a little bit on the smaller side for a tackle position. That's not small by any means, but a little smaller compared to other offensive tackles. 313 pounds, though, not small in that sense. Good athletic ability, quickness to read and to redirect skills, fluid mover, and who can intersect and steer smaller targets away from ball on pulls. So, that's kind of him getting out in space, blocking defensive cornerbacks, right? Defensive linebackers, safeties. So that's kind of him getting out in space and blocking downfield. Does a nice job on the front side, kick out blocks of fitting and walling off defenders. Efficient, quick feed, shows good recovery, mirror skills, flashes ability to strike through rush moves. So overall, sounding pretty positive when we're talking about some breakdowns on Josh Conerly. And then some negatives here from Bleacher Report. Only a couple as well. Susceptible to biting and getting caught flat-footed against stutters. Hesitation, similar to what we were talking about with Ersery of Minnesota. Mediocre play strength shows up in the run game with getting quick stalemates and pried open on angle drive. So it sounds like he's more of a moving down the field, moving forward, blocking offensive tackle, right? Someone who's going to, want to block out in space versus in the pass game, in the run game, where he's kind of having to move heavier guys, a little bit more difficult for him from that perspective. And so those are some interesting breakdowns, right? And that's why I wanted to bring up multiple names. We brought up the Colston Loveland, and then we brought up a bunch of offensive tackles. To me, that is saying that someone out there is hearing that the Rams are in heavy need for an offensive tackle at this year's draft. So take a look, be on the lookout for offensive tackle position in the first round until the Rams make a signing. If they go ahead and sign Alaric Jackson or sign another left tackle to at least be a placeholder for them, who knows, if depending on who it is, if they sign Alaric Jackson to a multi-year contract, I think that's where you'll kind of see the mock drafts change in terms of where they see the Rams going in the draft. But if you have that left tackle spot open, or you end up drafting a veteran, a veteran name off the top of my head, Kyren Smith, right? Former Cowboys left tackle, played for the Jets last year. I don't know if he's going to be a good option for the Rams, but say you sign a guy like that, or a guy who's in later in their career, just a solid placeholder at left tackle. That's where I think you're going to really see the mock drafts continue to see the Rams draft a tackle in the first round. That's going to do it for me on today's episode of the Rams Digest. Let me know if you guys like this mock draft video, if you guys want me to break down a little bit more. This is a kind of quick research I did. I could break down some more research on all of these guys if you guys like. I could do my own mock draft if you like. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. That's going to do it for me on today's episode of the Rams Digest. I'm your host, Joshua Giron, and I'm out.